This is a podcast about both having autism and living with someone who has autism. My mom is Sonya, and I'm Josh, and this is Josh Has Autism.
Hey everybody, welcome to Josh Has Autism.
Hello.
So, Josh, I want to get right into today because yesterday you had kind of, it wasn't an emergency appointment with a psychiatrist, but it was an urgent appointment.
Yeah.
And she knows you well enough to know that when things are kind of going haywire for you, and you say, I need this to be soon,
Yeah.
even if it meant like missing some work to do it, then it was really important.
Yeah.
And the good news is that after spending about an hour and a half or so with her, you feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So...
Another good news is I didn't actually miss work for it.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we are a day late, but the reason for that this week is because that took place yesterday. You were not up to doing this yesterday.
Right.
And you hadn't been. So, yeah, so let me just hand it over to you. What's going on?
There's been a couple of things that just compounded into each other, and I guess it was 2 nights ago? Something like that? At like 1:30 in the morning or something like that, I ended up texting you.
Yes, I was yes, about 3 nights ago.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I was overwhelmed and just depressed and worried and all these other emotions that were just stressing me out and keeping me up.
Mm-hmm.
And
But you were having a hard time functioning.
yeah.
So you weren't really able to concentrate. Your body hurt really bad.
Yeah.
In particular, your knees.
Yeah, they still do, but yeah.
Yeah. And you're just feeling overwhelmed, like everything was getting smaller. You know what I mean? Like, and like feeling like everything's getting smaller, so you don't have any place to go. Like
Almost claustrophobic, yeah.
Yeah, like you're getting stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, sorry. I was one of the worries, I guess, that I was able to articulate to you, and was that I'm worried about being able to do this job, the work I do at the library.
Mm-hmm.
I'm worried about not being able to do that in the future. Not that I would be incapable of it,
right,
but that physically I wouldn't.
Right. Can I share a little bit of what you said
Yeah.
to the doctor? Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's absolutely part of it. And what you worked at getting here, of finding how you felt and expressing it. But you did such an eloquent job yesterday with the psychiatrist, that basically what you said is that when Nana died, what followed was this conversation about death, and this led to when somebody dies, there's a bunch of paperwork that needs to be done. There's death certificates, and then there's the for us as your parents, Dad and I, were like, oh, well, we need to get certain things redone, wills, and what to put your name on, what to put your sister's name on, different things like that.
Yeah,
and,
for different possibilities and things, yeah.
Right. And so what you said yesterday was that made you feel like that there's this this topic, this conversation of death, which made you uncomfortable, and it really made you uncomfortable too because it made you feel like, well, death, it happens, and when it's done, and then there's this conversation about death, and then now you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm the age that I am, and I'm not further along than I am, and you started comparing yourself to other people.
Yeah.
Which,
Even after the last half hour or whatever of the meeting with the doctor was just me and her.
Yeah.
So before you had left the room, that was brought up. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Once you had left, I had clarified with the doctor that it's not that I was comparing myself to specifically you and Bug.
Mm-hmm.
And the differences of accomplishments.
Mm-hmm.
What I was able to explain to her
Mm-hmm.
was that even from the beginning of doing that, I knew that there were so many differences in all of our lives that it would cause a different outcome.
Right.
And there would be differences. And as she said, whenever you were still in here, comparing apples to oranges.
Right, yeah.
And it was not... It was so abnormal for me to do that in the first place.
Exactly, yeah. Right. That's out of character for you.
Yeah.
I don't know that you've ever done that before. That you've ever looked at other people and had the thought, I should be... Occasionally, little pieces of that, but not in the context of other people have gotten further than me. And that makes me feel bad that I haven't gotten that far. In the past, what it's been is that you've been frustrated because you realize that you've been stuck.
Yeah.
But not compared to other people.
Right.
And that's where this was different.
Right.
And
even then, again, once you had gone and the doctor talked with me about this, it was that I wasn't taking it in a bad way per se. Though I think the word she used was envy. When I had said that the totally wrong word, I even said that at the time, that it was the totally wrong word of jealousy.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that wasn't the right word, but I couldn't think of the right word.
Mm-hmm.
She said, maybe envy? I was like, possibly. But she explained that there's more, that envy can be taken in a good way and a bad way. And I think I interrupted her, I don't remember. But to explain where I was coming from was that you guys have done so many, to me, amazing accomplishments where for me it's been so difficult to get where I am. And here's the big difference was, how can I better myself to get as far as I feel that you guys are?
Mm-hmm. Right. And one of the things that caused you to feel like you were kind of having the walls close in on you is that that's a new concept for you, and then looking at it, you take that new first time ever experience of like somebody else has accomplished this and I didn't accomplish that, makes you feel less than in that regard, but also at the same time, so you're really emotionally upset, you have been, and while you were thinking about these things, but your body started hurting.
Yeah.
So we've talked about this before. When you're working, your job, it requires you to put the books back on the shelf.
Yes.
It requires you to clean them up and put them back on the shelf.
Yes.
And so, at the top shelf, no big deal, right? Sometimes it's repetitive, so you can, it can be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But on the very bottom shelf, what you described is that
it's maybe 6 inches off the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And
you have to get down there to be able to
even read the names that are on the sides.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's my eyesight doesn't help with that. But so I have to get closer than just looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to crouch down and read pretty much every single book to get to the right spot for the replacement of the books.
Mm-hmm.
And my knees will, every time that I kneel down like that, will both pop.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that growing up, even whenever I was mid-teenagers and beyond, my knees would pop, and I'd pop them. Originally, I think it was just for the sound of them, or whatever. But it's
You've been popping your knees for a long time.
Yeah, that's as far as I remember. It's probably been going on longer than that.
Probably about middle school.
Yeah. And eventually, it started being where there would be a pressure in my knees, and I would bend them to pop them, which would relieve that pressure.
Right.
And now, at this point, and especially since I started working, it's been getting gradually worse because that popping doesn't relieve that pressure anymore.
Right.
So my legs are constantly hurting, especially around my knees.
Right. And we'll get to some solutions for that that we discussed. But before we go to that, emotionally, what that made you feel like is that all of a sudden, do I have to give up my dream job?
Yeah. Will I have to give up my dream job?
Will I have to give up my dream job? So you...
Not in the current tense, really. In the future, will I have to? Will I be able to keep that job? Mm-hmm. Well, that was the worry. That is the worry.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that combined with you feeling like, well, you know, for the first thoughts ever that you've had that I should be further than I am in my life, and feeling like, well, and now my knees hurt, so, and I finally have my dream job, am I going to be able to keep my dream job? So all in once, it's kind of like everything just imploded.
Yeah.
And you felt pretty crummy about your situation and couldn't really emotionally feel like you could work through that.
Right.
And it's part of that because it was a new experience for you, a new thought, you know, that you've never thought that before. And I can't, you know, for you to never, and I can second this because I know you. I know how you communicate. I know what you think and how what you share. Mm-hmm. That's not been a part of who you are. Right. Is to look at other people and compare yourself to other people.
Right. I still want to say, and I'm still not saying it right, that even when it happened, I know that it wasn't the typical way that you're saying it.
Correct. I understand what you're saying.
So,
is that you were not? You mean talking about what the as far as what the doctor said?
No, for feeling. I guess.
No, it's a feeling of not like you are.
The comparison is
right. Sure. So it's not like you're feeling bad for what we've accomplished, but you're looking at yourself and feeling like, well, I really should be further along than this. There's things that I just haven't accomplished, and there are things that, you know, like you're feeling like you should have accomplished these things.
Right.
And the good news about that is that you can do anything that you want to do. And you're proof of that. If you ever question if you can do the things that you want to do, just look at what you've done in the past. We're sitting here doing a podcast, and, you know, when I was told by doctors that you would never communicate, that you would never be able to drive, you would never have friends, you would never be able to go to
a public school. Yeah.
Right. And all of those things you've accomplished.
Yeah.
And there are some very famous people that they didn't hit their stride until they were in their 50s, and they really accomplished some things that are pretty amazing. But right, and so what I take that to mean is it while you say, like, you look at us and you feel this way, it's not about us. It's about how you feeling about yourself. And it was that first time where you're kind of, which is interesting to me as to why it happened, because I know people are going to say, why did that?
Yeah.
Yes. So you've never compared yourself to other people in the past. Why do you think it happened, although it's in the context that you're describing?
Right.
Why do you think it happened this time where you're going, well, they accomplished this and I haven't accomplished enough?
I'm going to give an example
Mm-hmm.
of an actual conversation I had with Bug.
Okay.
That I also shared with the doctor. And that is, I think it was a few years ago, but Haley and I were talking about how we feel about our accomplishments, the things that we've done. I don't remember the context of why we were saying that, but
Mm-hmm.
And I remember telling her that I am so amazed and proud of all the things that she's done, and that from my point of view, at least, I am amazed that she has done so many different cool things that I can't put into words right now. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Right.
And she looked at me with like I was weird for a moment.
Yeah.
And she's like, thank you. I really don't feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
And she went on to explain that a lot of these, what I see as accomplishments, to her were filled with, I'm going to paraphrase, I guess, but were filled with stumbling blocks and
Mm-hmm.
Big mess ups and all that stuff along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm giving this example so that I can at least a little bit put it in perspective.
Okay, sure.
That I've known for years that to compare something from another person's point of view to another's
Mm-hmm.
will absolutely be different.
Mm-hmm. Which is a huge accomplishment. I just have to say, it's a ginormous accomplishment because for years you never recognized that anybody had any other point of view than yours. And how could they? And why would they?
Do you know one of the big reasons why that changed?
Why?
Books. Because specifically things like history books.
Mm-hmm.
Because short and sweet, the quote, history is written by the victors. That there is going to be multiple points of views for things.
Sure, yeah. Yeah. And books are wonderful too because you get to experience other people's points of view.
Yeah.
And and their creativeness.
Yeah.
You know, the way that they think comes through.
Yeah.
And it's a really cool peek inside somebody else's way of thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what did you think about that when Bug said that she didn't think of her things as accomplishments, but more like she viewed them as some things that she struggled through?
Yeah.
You know, to get to that point.
Well, I remember telling her that just makes it all the better,
Mm-hmm.
in my point of view, because she did come out on top in those things, in those struggles.
Mm-hmm.
So but so I kind of lost my train of thought. No, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. So we were talking about how you were feeling kind of for the first time that you were comparing yourself to other people, and how that kind of made you feel like, I would just use the word like less than. And so we might be talking about self-esteem, but we also might be talking about self-confidence, and just to be able to not only go ahead and get something accomplished, but before that thinking, oh my
that
God,
I can.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes, whether you can or not.
Right.
And there have been times in your life where you thought, oh, I can't do that. Mostly those things have been when when there's when you're being asked to do something in a way different than what you're comfortable with.
Yes.
In that regard, that's been very difficult.
Yes.
That's different than the accomplishments that you're talking about. Entirely, because the first one is talking about almost like ritualistic. You have to do it this way. If somebody says you have to do it a different way, you're like, not gonna happen.
Right.
What we're talking about is deeper than that. These are the
like completing college, like getting a job, the quote unquote normal milestones, and sometimes those milestones are the steps on those milestones.
And so you started feeling mentally and emotionally, you started feeling pretty crummy about yourself and what you've accomplished thus far.
Yeah.
And your knees started hurting really bad.
Worse than normal, yes.
Yeah. And so that made you feel like
It made me worry. Yeah.
Yeah, that whether or not you're gonna have to give this job up or not.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about that now compared to how you've been feeling all week emotionally about it?
Which part? I'm sorry.
Yeah, how are you feeling about yourself after having this conversation with a psychiatrist? Did she help you work through that?
I think quite a bit, yeah. And it's a lot of. I'm trying to get the right words here. One of the trouble spots I've had for years now is it's self-confidence.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily that I don't believe I can do something. It's second-guessing myself.
Mm-hmm.
It's all that entails.
Mm-hmm.
And so
You need you need to take a breath.
Yeah.
You need a beat. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. You looked over and I can help.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's interesting because there is the dichotomy of oftentimes the way that you present is matter-of-factly.
Yes.
And the way that you can express yourself, it's interesting because from the outside looking and seeing you, you seem very confident because it's matter-of-fact.
Right.
And the thing that you're dealing with, though, that's the opposite of matter-of-fact, are all the things that are going through your head at any given time about, is this appropriate or is this not appropriate? Is this okay? Is this not okay? Am I supposed to look at them in the eye right now? Am I supposed to say something? All of those things are simultaneously happening with your definitive response to things.
Yeah.
And so I can see that there's a complex operation going on in there.
Yeah.
That's
that exact thing you described
mm-hmm.
is also one of the reasons that it took me so long to join in with others when it comes to humor.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it would take me, usually be pretty quick at understanding the comparisons of a joke.
Mm-hmm.
But the issue that I would have is that if they expected me to banter with them or something like that,
mm-hmm.
I'd always, if I was able to come up with something, it would always be a second or two too late to respond in a timely fashion.
Mm-hmm. And when you were younger, sometimes you would come up with that thing an hour later,
Yeah.
and you would say it.
Yeah. Yeah. No matter who was there or what.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But you were processing.
Yeah.
And for you, it finally worked its way up to the front to be able to express it, and so you did.
Yeah.
And that was a learning curve.
Yeah.
To understand that, well, what was appropriate in this situation is not necessarily appropriate in this situation.
Right.
Also, what would have made sense at this time doesn't make sense to people now.
Right.
So the reason people are not laughing at what you're saying is because they were not the ones you were with.
Right. Right.
And
I'd just like to point out that
mm-hmm.
was especially true whenever I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
But today even, I was in the truck with Dad and we were going to get gas.
Mm-hmm.
And we were on our way back and we were talking about different things, and he mentioned I'm not going to go into what it was, but he mentioned something, and I almost a split second later had a response, but didn't know how to formulate it
mm-hmm.
to really be funny.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I thought I had it, I realized that it's been 5 seconds since he said anything.
Mm. And that would have been too long?
That, in bantering and comedy and stuff, yeah.
No, I'm saying, and so you think, because 5 seconds is kind of a short period of time.
True, but on top of that, it also takes a second or two. It's like, is it too late? Is it too soon?
Right, all of that's going on.
Yeah,
too.
and that, even that just takes up more time.
Right.
So I eventually did say it.
Mm-hmm.
Not even 8 to 10 seconds after.
Was it funny?
It was.
Did he laugh?
It was wrong, but it was funny.
Oh, did he laugh?
He didn't want to, but he was.
Okay. All right. Huh. Well.
Because, like I said, it was a messed up joke.
Okay.
But, yeah.
All right. So.
That's why I'm not saying it.
Okay. Well, good. Thanks.
Yeah.
So the other thing is that you've been. So anyway, to finish up with this first, so the doctor helped you to work through that.
Yeah.
And do you feel better about yourself now? Do you feel better about the situation? About where you are in life and understanding that I guess I should say this, you're not stuck there anymore, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that I'm comfortable just yet, but I am doing better.
Okay. All right, good. Well, the thing that we had talked about, so, go ahead.
Shortly after I had worked through that with the doctor, she had asked me, "Is there anything else you want to talk about or anything?" And my mind was drawing a blank for that, for anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So I fell back on social niceties.
The training kicked in.
Yeah, and it's like, how are you doing? And eventually it came about because we were just talking back and forth about self-esteem and self. What was the other word you used?
Confidence.
Yeah, that's it. Self-confidence. About what about what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow I not necessarily pulled out of my butt, but I mean that's the phrase, right?
That is a phrase. Well,
it is a phrase.
It's a phrase.
I pulled her.
It's a phrase. So I pull it out of a hat.
Okay, that works.
That would be good.
Yeah, sorry.
No,
oh my
I
gosh.
mean, so what you just said depends on who you're with.
Yeah.
If you're with your friends and, they're a little bit, if they're,
not as proper.
Exactly, then that would be okay, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not something you would say to probably anybody and everybody, but yeah,
right.
I get what you're saying.
Crap, I just said that on the podcast.
That's okay. That's okay.
But somehow I was able to formulate the response to her question to me then was, how can she, let alone me myself, make that better?
Mm-hmm.
Or at least what steps can be taken to make that better?
Mm-hmm.
And I told her that there was, I think I called it a tri-prong answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually wrote the 3 prongs down.
Okay.
In that conversation with her,
Okay.
but I didn't write down exactly what I told her, but
Right.
Those are trust, belief, and accept.
In yourself.
Well, somewhat.
Okay.
Yes, but somewhat. My answer was more than that, but yeah.
Okay.
Trust in yourself that what you're doing is good, that you're helping others by what you do.
Okay, it's important.
Believe that what you're doing will help, that no matter what others may say, you are doing good things.
Mm-hmm.
Accept that not everyone will think well of what you do, but know that you are doing what you can do to, what you can to be a good person.
Mm-hmm.
Don't listen to others that bring you down.
Mm-hmm.
Accept that they feel differently than you, and move on.
Mm-hmm. I think that's amazing. Yeah, it makes me think of a joke of one of my best friends, Karen Rontowski,
Oh,
very
boy.
very funny comedian. And when you're talking about how don't worry about what other people think, right?
Yeah.
She has this joke that says, my dad told me, Karen, don't worry about what other people say, because there's always going to be somebody standing there cutting you down. That's just how your mother is. So,
oh, man.
So yeah, so I get so when we think about that, but because yes, those are things that everybody feels.
Yeah.
So it is important to remember that what you're doing, you have to do for yourself before you do for anybody else, and you really can't worry if as you're growing and learning, you can't really worry too much about what other people are going to say about it.
Right.
Because again, you can do the best that you can at any given time.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's not, as Karen would say, sometimes that's not good enough for people, and you just have to move on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's good. So that conversation with her really helped you out.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And she also joked a little bit at the end after I had said all that to her, and she was saying, well, dang, why am I your doctor?
Like you
you were helping me more than I feel I helped you.
That's funny. That's funny. That's cool.
Yeah.
So for the physical part of how you're feeling,
Mm-hmm.
we know that when you feel something, in your body, your knees or wherever, your shoulders, your back,
Yeah.
you feel that pretty intensely.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can really focus on that, and
Yeah.
it can get beyond just a pain, because now your focus is on that area,
Right.
and it also stops you from moving forward.
Right.
A couple of ideas that I had for you. First of all, is I think that diet is super important, because there are certain things that are cause inflammation. Things that you eat, a lot of preservatives.
Yeah.
If you eat healthier, and we can go over that stuff that that your diet and what you can change, but that's going to be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
There's if you want to take something for that, there's Tylenol that's made for arthritis.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the way I approach things is because I do
holistic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Energy work. For me, it would be arnica gel to rub on your knees.
Mm-hmm.
If not that, then there's essential oils. There's something called Panaway,
Mm-hmm.
and it smells good too.
Yeah.
But you just mix a little drop of that with organic oil or coconut oil, and olive oil or coconut oil has to be organic, and you can drop some of that in that, and then it's a carrier, so you can rub it on your knees then, but before you go to work. The other thing is that crystals work, so you can put, and for your knees in particular, you can put copper. So you can go to any crystal store and pick these up. So not like a penny,
Right.
but
Well, you know that
actual yeah.
they stopped making pennies out of copper in 1963.
Well, that's why I'm saying don't use a penny. Cause, so you have to use a actual copper. If you were to put copper in your pockets while you're working, it really helps with joints and bones. So that could help out. I'd
like to clarify something.
Mm-hmm.
That copper is not a crystal, but
Okay.
but
right.
it is a mineral or whatever. Yeah.
And it works.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing that I offered you that you said no about is, you've, as long as I've been a Reiki master, you don't want anything to do with it.
Right.
So I offered to do some healing energy work on you, and you don't want that. And
Right.
and I, that's the deal. Is that when somebody doesn't want it, I don't ever.
Right. You don't force it on anyone.
Never, because it's not going to do any good.
Right.
Because people participate in their own well-being.
Right.
And you have to be willing to take that in.
Yeah, and if you tried to force it on them, they'd more than likely just reject it.
Yeah, and it wouldn't do any harm, but
Right.
it's certainly not going to do any good.
Right.
So that's not something that we need to do. But
Right.
there are some things like that I'm saying to you that can happen. I mean, that can help.
Yeah.
And so you can, your knees can feel better.
Yeah.
And then if it keeps going, we can always go get X-rays to make sure that everything, we can even do that now, if you would like, to make sure that everything is okay.
Right.
But those things, I think we are a really good start.
Right.
In helping you to get some relief, and eating better, healthier is a huge way to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think I surprised you and the doctor a little bit, I guess. Whenever we were all three together, talking about what you could do, and whenever I explained a little bit of it, because I understand the concepts of it and stuff like that. I just don't do it. I don't.
Tell me, you're gonna have to tell me what you are talking about.
I have not read the books or whatever that you have. I've not done any of that stuff, but I've been around you enough to know what you feel does certain things.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm able to repeat that back.
Okay.
And explain it to other people.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of surprised you whenever.
Well, say it, because I'm not remembering what you said. Say it.
It was. I think what I surprised you with was to whenever you were saying there's something that you can hold or whatever that pulls out stuff, and I said, what? You mean like copper, and it pulls out impurities or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you were. It seemed to me like you were really shocked that I knew that.
Yeah, well, I think it's pretty cool. In essence, what happens is that Western medicine talks about, they treat symptoms and what have you. Eastern cultures, they go to the root of the problem.
Yeah.
And so essentially, you have meridians and you have pathways. Everything is made up of energy. If you have pain someplace, more often that's a block, an energy block. So there's stagnation. So you use the energy work to open that up and get the flow moving, and it can help physical pain, but it can help emotional issues as well as mental concerns. So yeah, it does it all. But you're still no. Okay. All right. Well, I'm really glad that you're feeling better. I'm glad that we had that urgent call with her.
Yeah.
That she's it's a good match.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad that she helped you out with that.
Yeah, me too.
And are you still worried about the work, or you feel like after the conversations that there's solutions other than you having to quit?
I don't feel as claustrophobic, so to speak. Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
And while I don't currently see a long-term solution yet, I believe that there is one.
Mm-hmm. Good.
I just don't know of it yet,
Okay.
or fully at least.
Right. Okay. Well, are you up to having crystals or copper in your pockets?
No.
Okay. How about...
Maybe one of those brace things for my knees, but...
Well,
and I know that some of them have copper woven through them. I see that look.
Well.
I think things will be okay.
Okay. All right, good deal. Good deal.
Yeah.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. It's beautiful outside today.
Oh, it is. It is.
It is gorgeous. And it's we are a day late getting to you.
Yeah.
As you can tell by what the content of this podcast, it was, this was as early as you could do it.
Yeah.
It wasn't, you weren't able to do it until now.
And
so that makes a lot of sense.
I would like to clarify something real quick before we finish up.
Okay.
The 3 points that I said was trust, belief, and accept.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you wrote those down.
Yeah. But for me and I suppose most people on the spectrum, some of these are a lot harder than others.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And like belief, going back to the last podcast we did with the words,
mm-hmm.
feelings, and emotions.
Right.
Belief would go under emotions,
mm-hmm.
because it's not really tangible. And more so than trust and accept, but
mm-hmm.
If we were to do the 3 highways, going from fast lane to slow lane, it'd be accept, trust, belief.
Yeah.
But it's taken a long time for me to get to the point where I can explain these kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a thing where I'm just saying it and boom, it's easy. No, it's not.
Right.
I mean, heck, I'm still dealing with self-esteem and self-confidence issues.
Mm-hmm.
But those 3 points, I believe, can help move towards betterment of those.
Mm-hmm.
So, just wanted to say that.
Okay. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. And yes, it is a gorgeous day out.
It's a gorgeous day. Everybody, thank you. The amazing Josh, everyone. So, thank you everybody for hanging out with us. Yeah, like I said, we're back at this. If you'll give us 5 stars, that will be fantastic. Wherever you listen to us, we're all over the place. Help us be, heard and found again by giving us that rating. That would be great. We appreciate it. Yeah. And hope everybody's happy and healthy. And
thank you for sticking with us.
Yes. Yeah. And hug the people you care about.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next week. Love you.
Bye.